You're watching Service Electric 2 Sports, presented in high definition.
Welcome into the final SportsFest warm-up show. I'm your host, Erica Rose. This show is going to be a little different, and this first segment was a lot of fun. I head back to Wegmans, where Chef Andy Colsey shows me how to prepare a delicious organic salmon. If you love cooking shows, this one's for you. And I cap off this year's warm-up show with a great lesson for parents and athletes. I travel back to Lehigh Valley Health Network and meet with several different doctors who tell me about the procedures taken if one were to suffer a concussion. We welcome you back to the SportsFest warm-up show. So far, all we have been doing is talking about working out and getting fit. This next segment, we are going to switch things up a little, have a little fun, and talk about cooking. We are at Wegmans, and Chef Andy Colsey is going to join us now to talk about healthy cooking. Andy, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure. This is an easy thing to do, and I'm going to basically break it down for you on how to pan sear. Pan searing is a great way to keep things low fat and low cal. You don't have to add a lot of things to this. In fact, you use a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of basting oil at the end, and that's it. So the first thing we want to make sure is we have our pan to the correct heat. Okay, you don't want your pan too hot. I like to keep my hand about 2 inches above it. If it's nice and warm, we should be ready to go. Now, I know this is a bigger container that most people use, but we're just going to use a small amount. A lot of people don't realize it should only be enough to coat the pan. So a lot of people take their olive oil and they tend to over oil things.
Well, first, let me cut you off real fast. What are we going to be cooking before you get into all the details?
Fresh organic salmon. You got to have some organic salmon to cook up today. And what we've done was we've gone to our seafood department and we got a nice piece of salmon here. What we've done is we've added Wegmans pan searing flour to the outside. Because it's a granulated flour, it doesn't tend to clump. What happens is, because it's granulated, all the excess falls off. As you tap it, it falls off right away. Well, the cool part about this is it's already seasoned as well. It already has salt and white pepper involved with it. And it looks like our pan is all ready to go. See that faint smoke? That's what we want to do. Second thing is always place the product away from you as you put it into the pan. You want to make sure that you're not splattering anything on top of yourself. A lot of people tend to put too much oil in there and they have the heat too high. You should be able to put your hand above it at any point and not have any splatter come to your hands. If you tend to see a lot of smoking going on, or if you see some splattering, don't feel bad about taking a pair of tongs and maybe a paper towel and dabbing some of that oil out of there just to keep it nice and safe for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this to a nice golden brown on the first side. Searing, there's 4 steps. Mise en place, gather all your ingredients before you start anything. This way you don't have to run away for anything in the middle of cooking. That's not going to be a good thing. Second thing is sear. What we're doing right now, we're searing it. Because protein is kind of like cooking a balloon. You want to make sure it's all closed off to keep all that natural juices inside. So we're going to sear one side. With pan searing, you only want to flip things once. You sear it, and as you're searing it, all the moisture in the inside bubbles to the top. When you flip it over, it starts back up again. If you do that too many times back and forth, it'll tend to leak out of the sides. So we're going to have this seared in a minute or so. You notice that, once again, I can have my hand above it and it's not too hot. People tend to overcook things and they tend to sear things at a high temperature. You don't need a high temperature for this. A medium-high heat is your best way to do this. So as this starts searing, you see how this is starting to change color. It's going from that nice pink to a little bit of a golden brown on the bottom. And an opaque color, or a changing of the color in the salmon's actually going to start coming up to it as well. As it starts to cook, when it goes about halfway or even 3/4 of the way, that's when we're going to flip it over. That's when the process starts to change a little bit. As it sits here and it sears, it's creating that nice golden brown color. Now we're going to cheat. We're going to take a look real quick. because you want to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, but it's not getting too dark. Well, you see here, it's nice and golden brown. It's almost ready to be flipped over. So what we're going to do is we're just going to give it a minute or two after that, and then we're going to flip it over. The third process is what we're going to go into, and that's the cooking process. At this point, we're just searing. As we flip it over, it'll be the cooking process. That means that it's already been seared, and when you flip it over, it'll actually begin to cook all throughout the whole product then. Now, with this piece of salmon, this is a nice piece of salmon that's not too thick or not too thin in all the different areas, so it's going to cook a little bit more evenly. I like to pick out my salmon the same way, just to make sure it's not overly anything, that it's not real big at this side and then real thin at this side, because your top end that's real big may not cook as fast then. All right, so flipping it, you always want to make sure that you're flipping away from yourself, and you're also doing it in one movement. You notice I didn't throw it up in the air or anything like that. You don't want that. You want to make sure that as you flip it over, it's nice and gentle. As you can see, it's nice and golden brown there. Also, there's not a lot of oil in here, so it's nice and dry within the area. This is when a lot of people, if you're doing this for several people or even just for one, you can add vegetables at this point. So I'm going to add a couple vegetables in here. So I have some zucchini, I have some mushrooms, I have some peppers. What we're going to do is we're just going to create a little bit of a vegetable side dish with this as well. This is something that's really basic and simple. You notice that I didn't add a lot of fats and a lot of things to this. What I like to tell people is after this is finished, then you can add sauce if you'd like, or you can add salt and pepper, or you can add fresh herbs, whatever you feel like doing. But a lot of people tend to overthink this process, and all we did was sear one side, flip it over. We're going to finish cooking it. We're going to use our digital thermometer to make sure it's cooked to the proper temperature. Seafood should be cooked to 145 degrees. But a lot of the times people forget that there's a resting period. When you take your product out of the pan to let it rest, it's going to go up 3 to 5 degrees. So if you pull your product at 140 degrees and let it rest to 145, that's a beautiful thing. I'm going to turn my pan down a little bit. And I'm just going to keep it on low for right now, just to get it to where it needs to be. And I'm going to take a temperature at this point. You want to temp your product at the thickest point in the center. So right now our product, just around 90 degrees. So we're going to let that sit a bit and cook and continue on with that.
While that cooks, what are some other products that can be pan-seared?
Just about anything can be pan-seared. The process never changes. It's just your product that's changed. You can pan-sear pork, chicken, beef, any type of seafood just about. It's a very versatile way to cook things. A lot of people tend to overcomplicate things. This is a great way to go back to basics and make sure that you're just doing something very simple and healthy. And this is something that anyone can learn how to do. It is not a long process, and it's a process that's very basic. You can do this with everything, though. You can do it with shrimp, you can do it with salmon, vegetables.
Do you cook here every day for something new?
Something new is being cooked here every single day, yes. And actually, throughout all the different departments, there's a multitude of things that are going to be cooked off. Our seafood department does things every week. Our meat department does something every week. Each department within the different areas, they do something unique every single week. We have a program where every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we have something going on in most of the different areas.
And people can come here and learn. You'll talk like this as you're doing now, and they can stand here and watch you and learn things?
Yep, that's right. We do it step by step so people can understand how to do things. We also revert back to Wegmans.com. If you go to Wegmans.com and you click on cooking techniques, there's a video out there that breaks this whole thing down for you. So you can watch step by step and learn how to do this in the comfort of your own home. You may find it interesting as we're out here doing it, and sometimes people go, they make it look so easy, but when I get home, I forget what they were talking about. Wegmans.com makes it a little bit easier for the general person to go home, take a look at it again on a video, and see how it's done.
We always hear you should eat healthy, you should be healthy. Why is it so important, though?
Well, when you eat a healthier lifestyle, you're more likely to live a longer life, and your quality of life is better. As you eat healthy, you have more energy, your ability to do more things, and your general appearance. You seem happier when you tend to eat healthier because your body isn't bogged down with some of the unhealthy things that are out there.
And that goes to fit your slogan on the website, Eat Well, Live Well?
That's correct. We do have a great Eat Well, Live Well program here. Employees, but customers can do it as well. What we do is we encourage our employees to walk at least 10,000 steps a day and consume at least 5 cups of fruits and vegetables every day. And we do a competition. It's 8 weeks long, and each of the departments compete against each other, then the stores compete against each other, and then the districts compete against each other as well. And it's a really neat program, and it makes sure that everyone's walking and eating right for at least 8 weeks out of the year.
I don't want to be the blame for burning this, so do you need to check on this?
Yeah, we're just going to check the temperature on this one more time. Seafood tends to cook very quickly, so let's give it a shot. Wow, now do you see how fast that came up? We were about 90 degrees. We're about 125 right now. There is a process with pan searing that you can do to hurry this along. And what we can do is we can take a little basting oil and some organic butter, put it in our pan and tend to baste it. So I'm going to do that real quick.
While you do that, we were talking off air that I'm a picky eater and I don't like a lot of things, vegetables, seafood. What would you recommend for other picky eaters, or how should they get started? What's a good food for them to start with?
Well, picky eaters in general, I would always like to say stick with what you're comfortable with. Pick some flavors that you enjoy and then build on that. Also, a lot of people don't realize that you can use a lot of fresh herbs to enhance the flavor on things, and be a little adventurous. Try something new every week, and you'll probably be more likely to trying something new when you go out to dinner, or even when you're in your kitchen, you're coming up with things. I always tell people, utilize what you already have in your kitchen. You know, have fun with it. But yeah, picky eaters, I would have to say, just try something new every day. So what I did here was I took a little butter and a little basting oil, and what we're going to do is we're going to, oh, we got to turn our pan back up again. So let's get this hot. And what we're going to do is we're going to baste it. So that means just picking a little bit of the fat that's here and basting it over top of it. Why do you think the fat won't absorb into it? What was the first thing we did?
Seared it?
We seared it closed. This way, see, you got it. This way, the fats in that do not enter into the actual product. But what happens is you have that light amount of crust on the outside that has your product in there. It's great because as you're basting this, you can also enhance the color on your product as well. So as you baste it, it gets darker and darker and darker. This is the cool part with this. We're going to be a little bit like the bigger networks, and we're going to show you the finished product, okay? So this is what the end result should look like. And all it is it's been seared, the outside, basted at the end, and then we just did the vegetables in with it together. And I garnished it with a little bit of a beet leaf. Just in case you're cooking beets with this is a nice garnish on the plate, and you can eat it as well. But it's something that is fresh, it's healthy, and it's not a hard dish to make.
Yeah, that didn't take long. It only took about, what, 10 minutes maybe?
That's about how long it should take. It should take about 10 minutes to pan sear just about anything. Unless you're pan searing something very large, which you probably shouldn't be doing anyways, it should take about 10 minutes to do.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and giving us that demonstration.
My pleasure. It was fun.
And Andy did mention the website. You can go on there to find recipes, nutrition facts, and so much more. Stay tuned. We will take a short break and be right back.